Well, good morning for the second time. We had a hitch again this morning, and not our fault, but trust it's going to be a blessing to you now. And if you did tune out, hope you're tuning back in. We're talking about volcanic marriages, and volcanic in the sense of volcanic could be eruptions and fire and spewing things out, but it can also be good things despite the turmoil. And I'm not going to worry too much or spend too much time, at least, about what we did on Tuesday. But the main thrust of Tuesday was we cannot depend on one another for total happiness. Yes, we make one another happy in the marriage, we should, and there should be joy. However, our source of happiness does not depend on each other. And this morning, we need to discover the joy of moving through these things and working through these things, because the joy of the Lord is our strength and it's His joy. But I'm going to look at that later. This morning, I want to look at something I've termed dragons and gorillas. And I want to emphasize, I'm not being derogatory. I'm not calling people names. I want us to have a bit of fun and humor. And that's one thing I find lacks in our marriages and our relationships, with all the pressures of today and everything, is a bit of humor and a bit of fun. Tish and I used to do some silly things just to have a bit of fun, and it breaks the ice and it just draws you together. And those I'll also be sharing on later. But this morning, when I said we have expectations in the marriage, expectations in a relationship, where do those expectations begin? Well, I think right from the beginning. We don't sit and list them and make a list of what we expect of our wife or our husband, but it's just somehow built into us. And I think when the groom is standing at the altar waiting for his bride to come down, there are actually no expectations. He just wants to get married and loves this woman and wants to spend the rest of his life with her. And she's walking down just believing she's got the man of her dreams, and she's going to live happily ever after, and she's so blessed. He loves her and wants to marry her. And I often think it's a pity before the marriage that a lot of us don't get insight from others. And most times parents, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, don't pass the knowledge on when our children are going to get married. And I just have a sense of humor, a weird sense of humor perhaps, where I see things, and I sometimes need to see the humor in things just to keep my sanity and the sanity of those around me. But often when I do a wedding and I see the groom standing there, and I'll see the father look at him and wink and thumbs up, great choice, gonna be great. I often wonder, did that father tell him that beautiful bride that's walking down the aisle to him, the one he loves, is going to go through cycles in life and going to go through cycles in a month that could possibly turn her into a total dragon, and he, as the knight in shining armor, would want to take his sword and just kill that dragon. And then I see the mother looking at her daughter coming down, and perhaps tears, and wiping the tears away, and excited and happy. And she looks at the young man that her daughter's going to marry, and you can see she's so happy with that man. And I often feel tempted to go down and say, do you think that he's a great man? Does your daughter love him? What do you think of him? And I'm sure the mother say, oh, I'm so happy that my daughter's marrying him. He's such a good man, and I love him so much. And then I would be tempted to say, well, when last have you told your husband that? Okay, I just said we're having a bit of fun this morning. What I'm trying to get is, right from the time when we get married, we are not aware of how two people so different can come together, and the Lord says they should be one. We have differences, we have different views, we have different emotions, and I think many a time a woman is just looking to the man because a woman's security is in the way she's loved and how she's cared for and provided for. A man is very different. And I think a woman has dreams of the man just being with her on a couch and leaning on his shoulder, and they're talking about beautiful things and planning things together, and everything is going to be fine, and he's going to protect her and look after her, and all those things which should happen. And I think the man is there, and he's looking at this wife thinking, well, man, here I've got this woman, she's going to be mine, and we're going to have a great intimate life together, and we're going to be blessed, and she's just going to be there and do the things that, you know, men think women should do. And it doesn't turn out like that, does it? When I met Tish, and we were going out, and just before we got engaged, I remember going to fetch her to go out one night. And I just want to say, whatever I say about my wife now, I'm saying not just because she's gone. We shared this in many marriage counseling sessions. So it's something we both shared. And, you know, ladies they're always a bit late, men get used to that. But that's because they want to make themselves look good and pretty for you and presentable for you. And I was looking around the flat. I thought, oh, maybe there's something to nibble on. She was taking quite a while. And then I shouted through her bedroom door, hey, there's nothing to eat in your flat. And she said, of course there is. There's a box of apples next to the fridge. And afterwards, when we were going out, I said, but why? That's all the food you have. She said, I don't need more. I put the apples in the liquidizer, or take an apple on the way to work. And so we had a discussion that night. And I said, well, I'm used to 3 meals a day. I'm used to a good breakfast and this. And so we started to chat. And to my amazement, I found out that here's a woman who actually doesn't like the kitchen much. She loved healthy food, to look after things. And I think men have this expectation that the wife's going to be the superwoman and cook these 3 fantastic meals a day and be there to look after the kids and come home. When he comes home from work, she'll be full of smiles and love him. And a lot of these expectations are there. And we've never had anybody walk us through and explain to us, it might not be like that. Because just as a woman through her monthly cycle and that can become a dragon and fire comes out and the man doesn't know what to do, he's not prepared for this. I remember an example we used to share, and actually I shared it with a couple just recently who are going through an issue as well. And like I said, what I'm doing here is just practical. I just want to give practical stuff to try and help us in our marriages. I remember one day in midlife crisis, and Tish was going through a change, and I walked in and I said something to her, and man, she let me have it. And I said, why do you talk to me like that? And on top of her voice, she said, what do you mean? And I said, listen, you're shouting at me. And she shouted back, I'm not shouting at you. And I didn't realize everything she goes through and what happens in her life. And I remember sitting there thinking, dear Lord, you're the creator of heaven and earth, and you made us fearfully and wonderfully. But right now, I'm fearful of this wonder you've made. Why did you do this? Why did you make this have to happen, that the poor woman has to go through these things? And men, we're not ready for it, and we haven't studied it. We've just looked at this beautiful girl we love, and we're going to have life happily ever after. And then, you know, she thinks that the husband's going to go with her and do everything with her, and life's going to be a bed of roses. And I don't know about you men, I'm not one for browsing in shops. I like to go shop, get what I do, and get out. And most women love browsing. And I wonder how many women haven't found that when they take their husband to the shops, which a lot of men don't mind, but it's not really their thing, that after a while of browsing, he gets a bit of a gorilla, you know, oh, how long are you going to take? Are you going to buy anything? And then you slip him along to another shop. And eventually he gets this real, oh, well, I'm going to go now. I'm going to go have coffee in a coffee shop, or I'm going to go to the fishing shop, or I'm going to go to Builder's Warehouse. So I can't just do this all day. And then the poor wife is shattered. She thought this husband would enjoy looking at nighties and jeans and blouses and handbags. And it's just those things that disappoint us, because we don't realize in our DNA there are expectations, and expectations that have never been discussed or spoken, about, or the other partner doesn't find out how the other one feels about it. As a matter of fact, I don't think we go into marriage really knowing the person. We're in love with them, but do we know them? After quite a number of months and months of counseling a couple in marriage, I decided one night to play a little game with them that we use in our marriage counseling, and that is getting to know you. And we ask things like, well, what's your husband's favorite color? What's your wife's favorite color? What color dress would she buy? And you know, what meal would he like? Where would she like to go on holiday? And I happened to say to the wife, if you had to bring him a treat from work that he really loved, what would you do? Chocolate, a piece of boerewors, biltong, whatever. And she said, I know that. Every Friday, I bring him a jam donut. He loves jam donuts. And I saw by his face, he don't love jam donuts. And I said to him, well, is that right? Do you love jam donuts? And he just said, can't stand them. And she looked at him and she said, I don't believe what I'm hearing. I bring it home every Friday. You thank me, you give me a kiss on my cheek, and you eat it straight away. He said, yes, I eat it straight away because I just want to get rid of it. And I've never wanted to hurt your feelings. I've never wanted to tell you I really don't like them. But from the first time you brought one, I just did that to make you happy. To make you happy. You see, true happiness depends on getting down to the real nitty-gritty of knowing each other, understanding each other. But it goes beyond that. Understanding that our happiness does not depend on each other, but depend on something deep down within our own hearts. And for us to discover that is a gem. It will just cement you together. You'll go through your trials, you'll go through your issues, and you'll be able to keep moving forward. It's just, I think, a breath of fresh air when you understand that your wife isn't really a dragon during that time where she goes through a cycle. And one day I had no understanding, I couldn't understand it, and I spoke to our doctor who'd become a friend. He's a wonderful Christian. I went to speak to him. I said, what do I need to know? Man, and when he told me what most women, there are exceptions, very few exceptions, but what most women go through in that monthly cycle, my mind was blown away. I thought, this poor woman, it's a wonder she doesn't go stark raving mad in that time. So I asked him, I said, would you come and speak to our men and explain menopause and that to the men? And he did. And so we had a men's breakfast, and the men were choop still. They were so quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. They just looked at this doctor. And a couple of weeks later, one of the ladies in the church phoned me, and she said to me, I wish you'd never taken my man to that breakfast. I said, why? She says, well, I'm going through that time now, and he keeps asking me, do you want tea? I'll do the dishes. You sit down. She says, he's driving me crazy. I said, but wouldn't you rather have him like that? And she said, yes, I suppose so. I said, you know what? Just pray he'll keep being like that even afterwards. And we had a bit of a laugh and chuckle and had some humor. But we are ignorant of some of these things. And we also are ignorant of really what each other likes and desires and how we can help each other through those difficult times. There are many examples I can give you, but one in particular that I'd like to share is we were at a wedding, and you know, there was so much preparation for the wedding, and you know what happens? It's the dress, it's the suit, it's the tie, it's the new shoes, it's the ladies wanting to look perfect, makeup, hair, and everything. And I think that's great, because you should for your special day. It's a wonderful day. You're coming before the Lord to make a vow. And at this one wedding, the two mothers, the bride's mother and the groom's mother, were still in the hall adjacent to the church where the reception was, still arguing and bickering about they wanted this on the main table, the other one wanted. And I actually went to them and I said, you know what? The bride is at the door. If you two don't get into the church now, I'm starting the wedding without you. It is your daughter and son's wedding. honor it. But something struck me that day. There is so much preparation for the day. And there's so much input into what we should do and how it should be done. And everybody wants it perfect. And I just wondered if those mothers that wanted everything so perfect and their way at the church and at the reception had ever sat down with their children and said, listen, marriage is wonderful. It's good. God created it. And speak the blessing of marriage into them. But also tell them, please, this man or this woman will disappoint you and might not meet your expectations. And this is how you've got to press through it. This is the keys that you need to know. You need to know that he still loves you and that she still loves you despite what is happening. But you need to be secure in yourself and to be dependent on the joy that will take you through these things. I discovered once when Tish and I had a difference, and she had reason to be cross, and she was going on at me, and I just walked up to her and I kissed her, and while I was kissing her, she was still mom at me. and then she pulled away. She said, what you doing? I just said to her, you look so cute when you cross. And she just had to smile and gave each other a big kiss. And men, when your wife see you love them despite that, it just changes everything. They just melt. But one thing the Lord taught me was I had to depend on him. And in one time, we can so quickly see the negative in each other when we get disappointed because the person's not meeting our expectation. And so one time I said, Lord, what do I do? And the Lord brought this scripture to mind. And the scripture is from Ephesians. And I want to read it to you from the New King James Version. And it says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate or think on these things. And I want to share one key, and especially to the men today, and it's for the women as well. When your expectations are met, when you're disappointed, when things happen like menopause or browsing and the husband turns into a gorilla and menopause wife into a dragon, whatever it is, and come on, let's just have a bit of fun. I want you to get an explicit picture in your mind. You know what? Think on these good things. This is such a powerful thing that Paul wrote to the Ephesians church. Because what I started to do is if I was disappointed or my expectations were met or we were going through a rough time, I would start to look at the things that are good, pure, lovely, and of good report, virtue, praiseworthy. And I'd start saying, Lord, thank you that my wife is a faithful wife. Lord, thank you that she loves you and she serves you and she's committed to you. She had to be committed to the Lord to put up with me anyway. But and I'd say, thank you, she's a wonderful mother. She's such an amazing mother. Thank you, she's always here for me. Thank you for her goodness, her kindness to other people. And I just start thinking of the good things. And you know what happens? All those other things seem absolutely insignificant. And so I know we're going to go on in the series to giving you the key to joy. But I want to say, amidst all the dragon and gorillas that men and women can be, think of the good report. Understand you're not the only one that's going through things. One day we were sitting in a men's meeting, and just before we started, a young man said, yeah, you know what happened after midnight last night? After midnight, my wife whacked me on the back, and I woke up with a fright. And I said, now, what was that for? She said, you haven't told me for a long time you love me. And he said, as most of us men say in response to that, I know I did too, but I wouldn't have married you if I didn't love you. She said, yes, but you haven't told me. And he said, but I provide for you. I bring my money home to you. We've got a good home. There's food on the table. I don't go messing around. I'm faithful. I stay here with you. And he was telling us all these things he was telling her. And she said, but you haven't told me you love me. Men, let's get understanding that a woman has the need to be told she's loved. And he said he consciously woke up every morning after that saying, I will tell my wife at least 3 times today, I'm going to love her. I do love her. And everything changed. There was one man who was sitting looking at us all and like this worried look on his face. And I said to him, Ron, are you okay? And he said, are you guys all telling the truth? And we all laughed and said, yes. And he said, oh, thank goodness. I thought I'd married the only crazy woman in the world. And we said to Ron, no, we all experience that. That is their need. A man's need is his ego. He needs his ego built up and his ego strengthened through his wife. And we'll be speaking more of that later on. So this morning, I want to encourage you. Be prepared. He is the man of your dreams. She's the woman of your heart. But these are the real practical things that happen in life. But I want to come back to Proverbs 5:18 that we're going to deal with later, where the word says, may your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Learn to rejoice in her. Learn to see the good in her. Learn to praise God for the goodness and the blessing that she is to you. And then I want to repeat Philippians 4:8 as we close. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue, if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Husbands and wives, as you look at each other, look at the good. Think of the praiseworthy reports. See the value of the other person. As I said last week, husband and wife is a gift from God to each other. Appreciate that. Give each other praise where praise is due. Realize that just as much as the one spouse is disappointing the other, it works the other way. The shoe fits on both feet. So I trust this morning has just helped you a little bit and maybe just brought a bit of joy in you. And maybe you realize that your marriage isn't the only marriage that goes through the dragon and gorilla syndrome, but all of them, most of them do, I'm sure. And so we just want to help you in these practical sessions. May you be blessed. I declare your marriage to be blessed. I declare that you'll have wisdom and understanding for having a fruitful, blessed marriage in all you do. Because in the end, that is what counts the most. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. We'll see you 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. We'll be continuing the series, Volcanic Marriages, next Tuesday. Take care and God bless.